today's NCPDP webinar, Data Dictionary and ECL, how to effectively use these NCPDP tools. For Q&A purposes, you can ask a question at any time during the webinar today by typing in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar on the right side of your screen. All questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the webinar as time permits. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a PDF copy of the slides presented today, and the recording will be available on NCPDP's YouTube tomorrow. Our speaker today will be our very own Terry Fortin, a standards specialist with NCPDP. I will now turn today's presentation over to Terry. Terry?
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending upon what time zone you're in. Just a quick summary of our objectives today. I want to explain our data dictionary, also might be calling it the DD today, and our external code list, the ECL tools, which were recently web-enabled last year. We'd like to highlight some of the features that are available in the web-enabled, as well as what type of information you may find there, and also provide some tips for using the tools, either for reference purposes or when you're preparing to do the annual ECL implementation, or when transitioning to a new version of the standard. I will be reviewing information first on slides that have screenshots, and then I will be doing a brief live demo on the web-enabled tools prior to the Q&A. So the data dictionary contains all the names and definitions for all of the data elements that are used in our standards. This is all data elements that are in the data dictionary. Now, we do not include values for the data elements, as those are in the separate ECL publication. As you can see by the screenshot, some of the type of information that you might find in the data dictionary for a data element is its name, its field number, a description, as well as the field format and length, and a list of which NCPDP standards contain that data element. There also may be some comments or examples that are included. For the ECL, this is basically a subset of the data dictionary, and it contains the list of codified code values for those data elements which have that code list. Again, by the screenshot, you can see some of the type of information you might find in the ECL. Again, the name and the data element number and the description, a field format, again, which format or which standards utilize the field, as well as any field limitations. There also might be comments and examples. And then down below, you'll see the actual values with the description, and any value limitations would also be listed there. So where do you find these tools? They're currently available in 2 different locations, or accessed by 2 different locations. You access them from the standards lookup page of the NCPDP website, which is actually part of your members only. It's actually from the members only. There's a standards lookup. The publications for January 2017 and earlier are available in PDF format from links on that page. And then any publications for January 2016 and later are now available as part of the web-enabled tool. You could access both the PDF versions and the web-enabled lookup tool from the standards lookup page. Now also, for the web-enabled data dictionary and ECL, non-members may now access the information by being assigned a proxy by a member. So a member may assign 3 proxies to other individuals within their company. And once that proxy is assigned, the non-member is provided a link which takes them directly to the web-enabled data dictionary and ECL. The web-enabled lookup tool was implemented last year in February, and it basically provides a secure delivery method to help us protect our intellectual property and copyrights. When we had the PDF versions we were having some infringements of our copyrights. So now with regard to the Data Dictionary and the ECL, they are no longer being provided in PDF format. They're now only on the web enabled, except for, of course, the older versions, which you can still get in PDF. Also, switching to the web-enabled lookup offered us the ability to provide some additional search and filter functionality. Want to go over some features of what's in the lookup tool that many may not be aware of. First of all, there are help documents. There is one unique document for the Data Dictionary and for the ECL. And it's accessed by clicking on the question mark icon that appears in the top right-hand corner of the page. It's designed in a Q&A format, and it offers information on where you might, how to use the web-enabled tool, and also helps you to find information that you may be accustomed to having seen in the PDF version, like where do I find it now in the web-enabled version. You may also access prior versions of the web-enabled Data Dictionary and ECL. Across the top of the web page, there are hyperlinks to each of the prior versions that are available on the web-enabled tool. There'll be a box highlighting whichever particular one that you're viewing. And in addition, within the external code list for a data element, there are hyperlinks at the very bottom. And by clicking on one of those, it will take you to the same entry, or take you to entry for the same data element in that prior version. And it will only have links for whichever prior version that data element appears in. For search and filter functionality, there are some search options that are available in both the Data Dictionary and the ECL, and then the ECL has some additional features. So in the Data Dictionary and the ECL, you can filter by standard, so you can select either just telecom or script, and the display will change to only show those data elements that are used by those particular standards. You can also do a search on other criteria such as field name, field description, any text that might appear in comment and examples, and some other details. Also on the top scroll bar is the option to either look up by name, which will show an alphabetical listing, or look up by number, which will have a sort of data elements by their field name or number. In the ECL only, there are two additional options on the top horizontal menu. One is to filter by a shared code list. And if you select a shared code list, the display changes to only show those 8 elements which utilize that selected shared code list. Basically, there are data elements that may share the exact same list of values. So this is an opportunity to be able to see what other data elements may be using a value for a data element that you might be looking at. You also may filter by active or sunset data elements. And basically, sunset means that the data element is no longer used, typically may have a particular version that that's effective with. So this search criteria allows you to flip to no, so that you could see any ECL values for data elements that have ECL values and that they've been sunset on or before the selected version that you're working on. And the default is active to show only active data elements and their ECL values. Also in the ECL, within a data element, you have the option to filter the display of the ECL values. This is actually quite helpful when there's a very long, large list of ECL values. And this search criteria function is located actually right above the list of values. And again, you can search by the code value, the field number and error, part of the value description, or even part of the value limits. Within the data dictionary data element, if the data element has a list of code values that appear in the external code list, there is actually a hyperlink in the values box. By clicking on that link, which says the external code list, it actually will take you to the same data element in the ECL, so you can quickly look at those values for that data element. For the reject codes, NCPDP has always produced a separate Excel listing of reject codes, and we continue to do so. And it can be accessed by looking up the particular reject code data element in the ECL. And you'll see in the editorial note that there is a link which allows you to download that Excel spreadsheet. And also within the reject code data element listing in the ECL is a link to additional information for reject code. This was some content that was previously in the PDF format of the data dictionary, so it was moved over to here. Shared code list. If a particular data element in ECL has a shared code list, there'll be an expandable box. This is currently expanded in the screenshot, which will show you the values and their descriptions, and then which other fields utilize those definitions. So the dot in the box indicates that that field is used by one of the other data elements. And those that are grayed out means that that particular value is no longer used or it's sunset for that particular data element. And also you will see in the ECL in a list of values for a particular data element, if you see the grayed out, that also means that it's a sunset value for that field. For those of you familiar with the PDF versions of the ECL, these shared code lists used to be all the appendices in that document. So within each data dictionary and ECL version, there are also some additional information documents, and so I'm going to highlight some of them right now. The first is the DERF ballot document, and this is located in both the data dictionary and the ECL. And basically, it lists information about the ballots for the particular year that has been selected. The screenshot here is an example of the 2017 ballots. So this will list the ballot and which work group it came out of, the ballot number, and then which DERFs were contained within each ballot, which standard is impacted by that particular ballot. It gives the outcome. So R means that this had to be recirculated. A means it was approved during the first ballot. This will also show then which version of the data dictionary and the ECL the particular changes on that ballot will appear in. And then the last column, are about ECL DERFs, which are basically a DERF that strictly asks for an ECL change. And again, it will list which DERFs were voted on at that particular work group, and then which versions of the data dictionary and ECL it will be in. And the ones in bold were emergency ECL DERFs, and it provides the date upon which those would be effective. Currently, there's ballot history available for 2015 and to the present. Another item is the ECL implementation chart. And this chart applies only to ECL DERFs. Please note that if there's an ECL value modification included on a DERF, which also has changes to the data dictionary and or an implementation guide, it will not follow this schedule since it has to be included in a ballot. So this particular chart identifies, you'll see this annual implementation date. So for instance, for the one in October 15th, 2018, it shows you which ECL publication date are included in that recommended annual implementation date. And this chart also provides information about any emergency ECL value implementations. And note that this chart is available both from the web-enabled ECL and on the standards lookup page. Publication modifications are provided for both the data dictionary and the ECL in the additional information. There is one for each web-enabled version that is published. For the data dictionary, the changes are actually broken out and listed by standard. So the screenshot here shows the ones that were for telecom from October 2017. The publication summary includes the name of the field number, indicates whether or not it was an addition or deletion of a field, and then if it was a modification, it describes the modification. There is also a hyperlink to the associated DERF now, and also there's a note as to whether or not there was any kind of impact to the ECL. And then in the ECL, the publication modification summary includes, again, the name of the field and the field name or number, what the modification was, a link to the DERF. If it's an emergency ECL, it will include that date. And you'll notice here on the link to the DERF that there are two numbers. So basically, if it's an ECL only DERF, it has both a DERF number and an ECL number. There is also now the ability to search the history of publication modifications from 1999 to the present for the data dictionary, and then from 2004 to the present for the ECL. It's listed oldest to newest, and you use the search functionality on your browser to type in your search criteria to locate any information. So if you would like to find out everything that ever happened for reason for service code within the modification log, you could search on that particular criteria. So now we're going to move on to utilizing these lookup tools. One thing that is very important to be aware of is that there is only one publication or version of the data dictionary that is applicable to a version of a standard. It's important to refer to a publication called the Standards Matrix, which lists the applicable publication date and version of the data dictionary for the specific version of any standard you are researching. That matrix is available both on the standards lookup page and also in the additional information documents on the web-enabled tools. Utilizing the correct version of the data dictionary prevents the application of non-current value data or implementing items before they should be. Now, on the other hand, the ECL can be applied to a version of a standard starting with its date of approval and release. So all future publications of the ECL can also be used unless there's some kind of notation on the data element or the value limit, and that would be indicated in the ECL publication. Note that depending upon the standard and the version of the standard, you may need to use a PDF document for the data dictionary in conjunction with a web-enabled ECL version. Give you an example with Telecom Standard version D.0. The associated version of the data dictionary is July 2007. So no earlier or later data dictionary publications are relevant. But the July 2017 and any subsequent versions of the ECL may be used. Note, this data dictionary of 2007 is not available on the web, so this would be a situation where you'd have to use the PDF version from the website in conjunction with the most recent version of the ECL on the web-enabled tool. The data dictionary publication modification logs would be something that's used in conjunction with an implementation guide when you're moving to a new version of a standard. It can be used to identify what data elements have been sunset since the prior version, what are the new data elements and their attributes, and then what are the changes to names, descriptions, or attributes. You'd want to reference the modifications for the publications between the prior associated data dictionary and then the new applicable data dictionary. And then to identify the appropriate ECL values that accompany these data elements, that's where you could use the most current version of the ECL. The ECL publication modification log is something that you'd be using probably at the time that you are implementing the annual change or you're implementing any emergency changes. Again, you want to look for anything that's new or sunset or changed since the last implementation. You also may need to reference the associated data dictionary because if a data element is listed in the publication history as an ECL change, but it's not a data element that exists in your associated data dictionary, you would not be taking action on it for the annual implementation. Similarly, if it is a data element that exists in your associated data dictionary for the version that you're working on, but there's a new value that has some kind of limitation that references a subsequent version of the standard, or it references a data element that does not exist in your associated data dictionary, then again, you would not be implementing it for the annual implementation. So now I'm going to go to a live demo on the website. Bear with me as I switch. So this is the member portal screen. So first I'm going to go over here to Standards Lookup and select Data Dictionaries and External Code List to show you where the older versions are located. So I had selected Data Dictionaries and External Code List. So here you'll see all of the data dictionaries and ECLs and the reject codes from January 2017 and prior. From this screen, as well as from the original member portal, you can then click the box over here to go to the data dictionary or the ECL. I'm going to go to data dictionary first. On this first default homepage, I just want to highlight that we do have a warning message about making sure you utilize the correct version of the data dictionary. Up here is the question mark you can click on to access the help document. So you can click on the link and it'll take you to the question and answer. Again, here are the versions across the top. So we're on the 2018 January version. 2018-04 is not available yet, but I have access to it as staff. So here are all the additional information documents. As you can see, there's the standards matrix. I'm not sure why this is not moving. Okay, oh, there's the standards matrix, just a little slow. I have noticed on this web page that if there are some things that are large documents, it does take a few moments to load it. So the table of contents are links to the different sections. So for example, you can click on Telecom Standard Implementation Guide and takes you directly to that section. And so here's the chart. So if you scroll down to D.0, so here was the original D.0. So as you can see, this was the ballot number, and here's the dates for the data dictionary and ECL. And there's also a note of when it was named in HIPAA. whereas the current version is for F2, and when that gets implemented, it'll be utilizing the Data Dictionary from October 2017. Here is the DERF ballot document I had pointed out. For publication modifications, here is where you would search all years, and again, this does take a little bit of time to load. All right, I may have to skip this part because it's taking longer than I would have liked. If you go to, we'll do 2017 October. So again, this shows you what had been on the screenshot and how you can click and open the particular DERF. And also the hyperlink to the DERF is provided more to provide background information on the requested change, to actually identify what got changed. It's really best to rely on this publication or also to look in the actual data element listing itself. And it's decided to show the publication modification for all years. So for example, if I wanted to do Control F to bring up the search bar, if we did result of service, you can see that it will find that one and then the next one. So again, on top here, you have the order in which the information will be displayed. So it could either be by name. And I apologize that this is so slow. So it's an alpha listing, or you can do by number. So this is by field number. Here is the filtering for standard. And then this is the criteria for searching on a field. So I'm going to go to patient ID qualifier, which I had shown in the screenshot, to demonstrate going from here over to the external code list. So it'll open in a separate window. So again, takes you right to the patient ID qualifier for the January 2018 version, and it lists the values. As you can see, here's an example of one with the value limitation. Here's the search box within here. So as you can see, you can, in this case, search by code value, description, and limitation. For some other data elements, there'll be more options available in this dropdown, and that's because there's more information that's contained in that particular value list. And scrolling down to the bottom, you can see where are the links to the earlier ECL versions. And then here is the active yes, no button up here for filtering. And then for shared code list, I'm going to select basis of calculation code values. So here are the fields then that contain that, or that use that particular shared code list. And I'm going to select the first field here, co-insurance. As you'll see, you can expand this box, and this is what have been shown in the screenshot. and then the individual values are listed below for that particular field. Now I'm going to take that off. Now I'm going to go to reject code. You'll see on here on reject code that there's different alpha values here, and those actually are codes for our standards. So if you actually just click on reject code, it defines what the alpha characters stand for. And this is done because there's some kind of difference between the data element or values between these versions and then the formulary and benefit standard. So whenever you see that, that's what that indicates. So we'll select the entry that contains telecom. And this is large, so it does take a moment to load. So as you can see, here's the hyperlink to the spreadsheet. So it opens it in separate. And then here's also the link for the additional information for the reject code. And you can see here that there's a few more search options for reject code. You also have fields, possibly an error, and the telecom emergency implementation date. Now, in the additional information for the external code list, there's a few more items. Again, you have the implementation chart. There's also standards matrix here, the DERF ballots, the publication modifications. And there's also this process overview document, and this was recently updated to give some information on best practices. So these recommendations done by the NCECL task group for things to consider when you are creating an ECL DERF to present at work group. There's also other information about using external code lists and its vocabulary, and a quick reference chart. And then the emergency telecom addendum. Again, all information that was previously provided, and some of which is still available in the standards lookup. And again, question mark up here takes you to a unique document for the ECL. So that concludes what I had in the live demo. One last thing to share with you all is coming soon, we'll be offering NCPDP standards table data. This is basically a cost-effective solution for updating values and definitions that support our standards. The files are system generated, and they come from the same web-enabled tool, and it puts it into machine parsable raw data that can then be imported into existing applications. I believe this is something that a lot of IT departments will appreciate having. It is something that's available for purchase to all active NCPDP members, and the information for it will be provided under standards development on the NCPDP website. And that concludes the prepared portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Terry. We will now start the Q&A portion of our webinar today. Remember, you can ask a question by typing in the question pane on your GoToWebinar toolbar. Our first question today: can you provide an example of how to identify if an ECL change is applicable to D.O for 10.15.18 or the next named HIP version, i.e. COB ECLs? Would you like me to reread it, Terry?
I think I may need to break that down into two parts, possibly. Go ahead and repeat it, though, please.
Can you provide an example of how to identify if an ECL change is applicable to D.O for 10.15.18 or the next named HIPAA version?
Okay. To be honest, I mean, the best way to do that is if you're looking at, we'll take the October 2017 ECL. I mean, really the best thing to do is to look up the particular field and field number in the October 2007 Data Dictionary. And so you'd have to go, this is a situation where you would need to use the 2007 Data Dictionary PDF version in conjunction with the web-enabled ECL. So you would want to look to see, is this field exist in 2007 Data Dictionary? Yes or no. If it does exist, then I need to look at the ECL modification description. However, you might see a limitation described in the modification that says the value change is only applicable to possibly version EB and later. And if that statement was listed there, then you would not apply it, even if that field does exist in D0. It's a little tricky. You kind of have to have multiple things that you're kind of using together. I hope that helped.
Okay, and at this time we have no further questions. Remember, you can type a question at any time on your GoToWebinar toolbar in the questions pane. We could forward to the annual conference slide, and I could go over that and give people a little more time. Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
Okay, so everyone on the call, this is a reminder that our annual conference is right around the corner. Online registration closes April 27th. Our exhibit hall is sold out at this time, but there are sponsorships still available, so be sure to secure yours ASAP. Check out our conference website for weekly updates, and the track session descriptions and speaker bios are available online if you'd like to see more about the educational content we will be featuring this year. And with that, as we have no more questions at this time, that will conclude today's webinar. Data Dictionary and ECL, how to effectively use these NCPDP tools. Thank you, Terry, for your time and expertise today, and thank you all for your participation. A PDF of the slides and a link to the recording will be sent in the next 48 hours. Have a great day, and we hope to see you all at our annual conference this May. We do have one question that just came in, Terry. Could you go over the active field again?
Oh, yes, okay, sorry. So yes, I believe the question is regarding this active search button. So yes, the default in the ECL is yes. So this indicates that this is showing all those data elements that are currently active and have ECL values. If you flipped to no, this now changes the display to be fields that have been sunset or inactivated in recent versions. We'll use the example for telecom. For example, I don't know if this may not actually apply to telecom, but we'll pretend for example purposes that it does. So if adjudicator ID qualifier actually is in the data dictionary from 2007, that's an active field for anybody who has currently implemented and is using D.0 of the telecom standard. But potentially it was sunset for, we'll say, version EB and later. So basically you might still want to see what the values are for that particular field, although it's been sunset for future use. So that's kind of how you would utilize this. Also, if you have a default set to yes and you can't find that field, you might want to flip it to no because maybe it's been sunset and that's why you couldn't locate it. Or maybe it doesn't have an ECL list, because remember, this only contains those data elements that have a codified list of values.
Okay, thank you, Terry. We have no further questions at this time, but just to let everyone know, if you think of a question after the call, feel free to email us. You can respond to the webinar email, or of course, Terry is available, as many of you know her. And with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's webinar. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you at annual conference.